Welcome to Justice Now. And this is Tips for Black Workers, Part 2, um, Part B. The other part, talking about training. So the other thing that you want to be aware of is definitely have your list of questions and definitely read over your policies and procedures. Any questions that you have surrounding them, definitely inquire about it because you want to get very, very familiar with them from the onset. If you're not familiar with your policies and procedures, what tends to happen is you tend to miss out on opportunities. There might be hidden perks in there. You might also be asked to do things that are against policy and procedures. That you may not have been aware of or sure about. And if you were to do them, then there could be just cause to terminate your employment. So, for instance, for myself, I make it a point to read the policy and procedure. And of course, one of the policies and procedures is privacy statements about privacy policy. And I remembered in the last job, which was a hostile environment, there was a colleague who had asked me to access an account. And I recited that policy, that privacy policy back, and declining to do so. Now, sometimes what will happen is, some of these people will know what they're doing in terms of asking you to do something. And, by the kindness of your heart, you think that, oh, I'm doing this, but in fact, you're actually breaking a policy or procedure. Make sure that doesn't happen. It's something that can be avoided. So be sure to be very familiar with policy and procedures. Another thing that you want to be clear on is around its insubordination. So something that tends to happen is, say, if you're really good at your job, a way for a manager or supervisor to abdicate their role is to put more roles onto you. So, for instance, your job description is customer service, and you are to provide help to customers who are calling in with inquiries or help with their account. A way that a supervisor or manager can abdicate their role is to say, okay, well, there's another coworker of yours on your team that's struggling. You're now responsible for training that person. But training is not on your list of job responsibilities. So here's where you're in a catch-22, and this is why it's very important to understand insubordination, what it's about, understand your roles and your job role and your rights and responsibilities. This has happened to me actually, where I've had a manager say, okay, now you're responsible for training this person. Well, if you were to go and train, if it's not in your job responsibilities, that's insubordination. You cannot do something that you haven't been trained to do. And then if you turn around and say no, they can turn around and say, oh, well, you're being insubordinate because you're not following our directive. The way that you can get out of that is say, okay, well, if you want me to train this person, then I need training myself in order to train them effectively. And if that is the case, then my role also needs to be changed and my pay also need to reflect the new responsibilities, because then that means that's a change in my role and responsibilities under the job description. That's how you get out of that. So make sure that you're very familiar as to what's expected of you, because if you have a sound understanding of to what's expected of you, and what's needed, what the policies and procedures are, what your roles are, what the other people's roles are, then you will be able to make informed decisions as to how to proceed with particular situations. So that's what I have for Part B of part 2, Tips for Black Workers. Stay tuned for more videos.